What's up guys, Jorge Contreras here, and in this video I am going to share my journey on how I began selling drugs at age 7, how my dad passed away when I was 12 from alcohol, and how I went from broke to millionaire, and more importantly, the 3 biggest lessons along the way. I will share how I used my failures and my humble beginnings as stepping stones to create the success and the financial freedom that I've created in my life. But more importantly, I know that you'll be able to relate to my story in some way and how you can utilize these 3 biggest lessons so that you too can be successful and accomplish your goals in life. If you stick around till the end of this video, I feel very confident that you're gonna walk away inspired, motivated, driven, and excited to be able to accomplish your goals, live a life by design, and truly live the life that you've always dreamed of, regardless of the obstacles and challenges that you've experienced in the past or that you may be experiencing right now. With that being said, let's get started. So let me start from the very beginning. Both of my parents came from Mexico in their 20s in search of a greater opportunity to the US. Fast forward a few years later, I remember being at my brother's funeral when I was just 5 years young. He was 16, he was affiliated with gangs, and he was set up and he was murdered. When I was at his funeral, again, I wasn't very close to him. I have a lot of brothers, a lot of siblings, and from various women that my father had children with. But even though I wasn't close to him, I remember experiencing the pain, the heaviness that everybody was feeling at my brother's funeral. And of course, experiencing the death of a brother at such a young age, I definitely feel like I carried that fear for many years of my life. Fast forward a few years later, I remember being 7 years young and selling drugs with my father. He would always say, Jorge, let's go to McDonald's and I'm gonna get you a Happy Meal. And we would, and I loved going to McDonald's. And then after we would get my morning breakfast or my Happy Meal, we would go to these industrial buildings where we would sell drugs to some of the workers. My dad would say, Jorgito, go and hand this to that guy over there. And we would do like this swap where I would get the $20 bill and I would give them the drugs. Also, when my father wasn't home, we had clients that would come over to our house and buy drugs. Now, I know this may sound a little weird, but to me, this was normal. It was one of those things where the fish does not know that it's in the water. I assumed that everyone's life was like this, being surrounded by gangs, drugs, alcohol. My dad being in and out of jail, I thought that was just normal because that was my perception of life at the time. Now, my dad was an alcoholic for most of his life. And when I was also 7 years old, I remember when the doctor told him, if you want to see your youngest son, Jorgito, grow up, you need to stop drinking. Otherwise, you won't be around to see him grow. And I am the youngest of all my brothers and sisters. And he did stop drinking, but when I was 12 years old in 1999, he passed away from alcohol. I remember the day when my mom came to my school and picked me up, and I was like, what's going on? And she said, your father passed away. That was one of the most difficult challenges that I experienced in my life. And still to this day, of course, I wish that my father was here. I'm sure that he would be very proud of me. I've been able to use the experience of everything I didn't get so that I can make sure that I can be the father to my daughter that I didn't get to have. And so there are a lot of lessons that came along the journey with that. I forgot to mention one thing. Also, when I was 10 years old, I also used to smuggle people across the border with my parents. If it was illegal, my dad did it. Selling drugs, smuggling people, in and out of jail, gangs, alcohol, dad being physically abusive towards mom, and that was just normal. Now, for months after my dad passed away, all I would do is I would ditch school with my friends, we'd smoke weed, eat donuts, and skateboard all day. I realized that I was hanging around with the wrong people and I was in a very dark place. I didn't think that I was ever going to get out of the way I was experiencing life at the time. Luckily, a few months later after my dad passed away, I attracted my first mentor, Mr. Parcell. He was my substitute 7th grade teacher, and he knew exactly what was going on in my life. He saw that I was getting bad grades, that I was disruptive, that I missed school, and he knew about my dad's passing and my brother's passing. And he sat next to me and he said, Jorge, you don't have to be a product of your environment. You don't have to follow the same footsteps. You can reinvent yourself. You can change your life, set a new standard for your younger siblings, and you can change the world. Now, when he said that to me, that was very, very impactful. I truly didn't quite understand everything he said in that moment, but hindsight is 2020. At this point, I realized that I needed to change my environment. So I started to let go of the wrong people in my life to make room for the right people in my life. So what happens next is I'm 13. My mom is unable to take care of me financially, like in many Latino homes, in the Latino culture. My mom cooked, cleaned, and took care of the kids. My dad was the breadwinner. So my mom was not able to take care of me. And so I started living with her friend. And her friend, Estela, which I am so grateful for, said, look, Jorge, as long as you keep going to school, she said, I will feed you, clothe you, and put a roof over your head. So that was the deal. I kept going to school, but school wasn't really for me. I was able to graduate high school barely with 4 Fs and 1 D. I think throughout my entire time in school, I was on average a D student. At 16, I got my very first job as a photographer at a water park in Southern California called Knott's Soak City. I became 100% dependent financially at the age of 16. I'm so grateful that Estela gave me a couple years of supporting me financially and putting a roof over my head. But then when I turned 16, she said, hey, I've taken care of you. Now you have to look over yourself. And again, it was the biggest blessing. So I got my first job at 16. I'm renting a bedroom, paying $300 a month, and any expenses were coming out of my pocket. And what that taught me was how to be financially independent. It taught me to be responsible, and it taught me to grow up fast. It really taught me to grow up fast because I didn't have an option otherwise. And again, the reason I was able to graduate high school with 4 Fs and 1 D is because I only needed 5 more credits to graduate. I always went to summer school. I did the 0 period, which is an extra class in the morning. So those 5 credits and that 1 D, with that, I was able to graduate high school. So after the job as a photographer at the water park, I worked for a few years selling women's shoes, just like Al Bundy. And then my last job is I'm 20 years old. I'm also going to community college at the time, and I'm working at Bank of America as a personal banker. I had my own cubicle. I would help people open up business checking accounts as well as personal. And that's when I was introduced to LLCs, corporations, and different entities for asset protection. At the time, we also did the loans in-house. So if somebody was purchasing, refinancing, or doing a home equity line of credit, I would do all of that for my clients. So I had the blessing to be able to sit with a lot of business owners who owned various businesses, from landscaping, gasoline stations, and almost any business you can mention. And it was great because it was like free mentoring. I would see how these business owners were able to create financial freedom and how great they were doing in their finances. So at 20, I had to make a big decision, a decision that all entrepreneurs must make at some point. You see, I had already missed 2 classes while in community college. And I remember my teacher said,
Jorge, if you miss one more time, I am going to have to withdraw you from this class.
Now, while in community college and while working at the bank, I found my passion and began my first business where I became an entrepreneur. And I fell in love with bachata, which is a sensual partner dance from the Dominican Republic. So while going to community college, I joined the salsa team, and my salsa partner introduced me to bachata. She said, hey, this is how you do the basic. Check out this music. There's a band called Aventura. Check them out. So I went to the store, I bought their album, and I started listening to the music, and I fell in love with the music. And I began practicing learning the steps from YouTube videos in 2007. 3 months later, I remember I created a group text with my BlackBerry phone. You guys remember those BlackBerry phones? Yeah, so that's what I had. And I texted all of my friends and I said, hey guys, I'm going to start teaching bachata at my friend Yaneli's house. So I'm facing a concrete wall. I had my little stereo with a CD. Yeah, you remember those CDs? Yeah, one of those. And it was free. And then a few months later, I started charging $5, $7. Long story short, my partner and I became the pioneers of bachata, one of the pioneers of bachata in Los Angeles, California. We started the first bachata dance company. I started the first bachata nightclub in the US. We started the first bachata dance Latin festival in Los Angeles. And for 8 years, I got to travel to over 25 countries living my passion. I got paid thousands of dollars every weekend to teach people how to dance and to teach other instructors how to teach bachata. It was truly a blessing. At one point, I even had 8 streams of income from dance and from real estate. So going back, because I started creating opportunities with dance and we started traveling when I was 20, That's when I had to make that decision. And so I did what every crazy entrepreneur would do. I jumped off the mountain and I built an airplane on the way down. I quit my job at B of A. I dropped out of college. And at 20, I am a full-time entrepreneur.
Making no money.
Just kidding. I was making some money, but nowhere near what I was making at the bank. But in entrepreneurship, you take on that risk reward ratio. You take the risk of not making a lot of money when you're getting started, but at some point in the near and later future, you could be making double, triple, quadruple, 10, 20x what you were making at your job and actually start building an empire that one day you could pass on to your loved ones as part of your legacy. So I actually started uploading bachata dance videos in 2008, 9, 10, 11, and I was able to accumulate over 10 million views before YouTube became what it is today. So fast forward to 2012, I purchased my very first property in Los Angeles, California. I purchased a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2-story, single family residence. Over the years, I added a couple units to that property. And when I bought it in 2012, I bought it for $240,000. And then in 2020, I sold that property for $690,000. And I was able to profit over $300,000 after all expenses. So like I said, I learned a lot because I did some new construction, I did some accessory dwelling units. So from 2012 to 2017, I continued to acquire rental properties. I continued to buy duplexes and triplexes. Duplexes is when you buy 2 houses on one lot, and a triplex is when you buy 3 houses on one lot. And then in 2017, I began putting some of those properties that used to be long-term tenants, and I started converting them into short-term rentals like Airbnbs. So by using Airbnb, I was able to more than double my monthly cash flow. So after I started making 6 figures of cash flow, I was like,
I can get used to this.
So those were a lot of the challenges and obstacles along my journey. And now I want to share a little bit of what my life is like today. I've had the blessing to be able to travel, as I mentioned, to over 25 countries around the world where I got paid thousands of dollars per weekend to dance, to teach people how to dance bachata, which was such a blessing to be able to experience. One of my most memorable and beautiful experiences that I've been able to create for myself and for my beautiful mother is, as I mentioned earlier in the story, my mom cooked, cleaned, she took care of all of her kids, and she did an amazing job at that. But my mom was never really a breadwinner, an income creator. She never really worked since my dad took care of all of that. And my parents actually never owned a house in the US. So I come from a family where, again, my parents never went to school, literally no education, and I'm the only one out of my 9 brothers and sisters that graduated high school. So I'm not a trust fund baby. I wasn't raised into a family where there was a ton of money or a ton of real estate. I think what we did get from my dad is that entrepreneur spirit, since he never worked for anybody. Of course, I'm doing it in legal ways. Sort of. Yeah. Anyway. So going back to the story with my mom, in 2017, I was able to buy her very first home and her dream home in Southern California. I remember making a vision board in 2014, and on there, I set a 5-year goal. I said by 2019, I will buy my beautiful mother a home. And I remember asking my mom, where would you like a home, in what city? And she said in Riverside, California. Now, with what I had learned at Bank of America, I knew how to buy my first home and how to become a homeowner, but I didn't know how to become an investor. And see, being a homeowner and a real estate investor are 2 completely different things. So what I was doing for the first few years of having my property is every month I would send an extra $2,000 to $5,000 additional to the mortgage payment. I was on track to pay that house off in the first 8 years. And then in 2015, I became a student at the Rich Dad Poor Dad real estate investing education company. And I bought a package that included a mentor. And that mentor, her name is Mary Jo, she asked me, Jorge, why are you paying down your mortgage? And I said, because I want to create financial freedom. And then Mary Jo says,
That's not how you do it.
I was like, what do you mean? She said, yeah, you can pay off your mortgage, but you're still gonna be stuck in the rat race, trading your hours for dollars, and you will not have financial freedom that way because you're still gonna have so many other bills. So then I said, well, how do you create financial freedom? She said, instead of trying to get rid of your debt, you should acquire a lot more debt. So what I did after that, after being mentored by a multimillionaire, is I refinanced my home. And I went from a 15-year loan, which I got in 2014, and I stretched it back out to a 30-year loan so that my payment can be as low as possible. I also did a refinance cash out where I pulled out $160,000 of equity during a refinance cash out. And then I used that money to acquire more units. And so what I learned, a valuable lesson during that mentorship, is that there's really two types of debt. And growing up, maybe you had the same experience as me where people told you debt was bad. Get out of debt, cut up your credit cards. But I learned that there's really two types of debt. There's good debt and then there's bad debt. Good debt puts money into your pocket. Bad debt takes money out of your pocket. She said you want to acquire as much good debt because that good debt through real estate is going to create more monthly cash flow. So you can continue to build not just your cash flow, but also equity by holding and owning more rental properties. And that became a game changer. So the way I became a student at The Rich Dad is I went to a 3-day training and I took my wife, my girlfriend at the time. And on day one, I knew that I was destined to be a real estate investor and to do this and make a lifetime commitment because I just fell in love with the possibilities with this asset class. And I remember on that 3rd day, I called my mom and I was so emotional, I could not stop crying. And my mom, you know, coming from Mexico and all of the things that she had experienced with scarcity and being poor, she always thinks of the worst things immediately. So when I called her crying, she asked me, I couldn't speak, first of all. I called her and I was like, you know, and I really couldn't gather myself. And when I called her, I really called her to tell her that I finally figured out the vehicle and the journey that I was going to embark on, which was going to allow me to acquire the knowledge to be able to buy her first home. But when I called her, I couldn't speak. So she's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? ¿Qué pasa? ¿Qué pasa? Finally, I'm able to tell her, Mom, I figured out how I'm going to buy you your home. A year and a half later, I picked up my mom at my sister's house and my sister was in it, she knew, and we blindfolded my mom. And I've done crazy things like this before where I just took her to her favorite restaurant or just surprised her with something, like the time when I bought her a car. Of course, this time I blindfold her, I tell her that we're going to go eat, but really I'm driving her to her home. Earlier that morning, I had all of the furniture from couches, bed, refrigerator, stove, TV, decor, everything that goes inside of the kitchen. She didn't even have to go buy toilet paper. I furnished the house 100%. All she had to do was bring her clothes. And so we pull up on the car, which my Toyota Corolla at the time, and she's blindfolded. It's a rainy day. And I get out of my car and I go to her side. I help her out. I walk her in front of the car. So she's facing the house and I say, Mom, put your hand out. And I put the keys in her hand and I said, Mom, welcome to the rest of your life. And then she opens the door, and of course when she opens, my whole family who helped me clean and organize everything is like, surprise! And honestly, for me, that was one of the most beautiful experiences. And being able to create financial freedom and to become a millionaire and to create financial abundance, for me, some of the most beautiful experiences that I've been able to create for, you know, myself, my wife, our family, or our loved ones is by utilizing the money that we've been able to create through real estate and use that to create beautiful memories and beautiful experiences. Me and my wife began dating each other in 2012, and then in 2017, we got married. And now we have our beautiful daughter, Catalea, who is about to be 1 year. Me and my wife now have the freedom to be able to travel as often as we want, with who we want, whenever we want. We on average travel 4 to 6 times a year. And we love it. We love the freedom that real estate investing and entrepreneurship has given us. Not only that, I kept doing my dance business, which I call and refer back to as my job, because if I wasn't there physically, I wouldn't get paid. And anytime you have a business that can't run without you, that's not a business, it's a very expensive job. So I had that job up until 2017. And that's when I began making 6 figures of cash flow with Airbnb. And I got out of the rat race officially because my passive income exceeded my monthly living expenses. Then a year later in 2018, my wife, Stephanie, she actually has a criminal justice degree and was an officer for about 6 years. And thankfully by 2018, we added an additional 6 figures of cash flow with our short-term rental and real estate investing business, such that she was able to leave her 6-figure job at the end of 2018. And now we are stay-at-home parents. 100% of our income is online through our real estate investing, Airbnb, and coaching and consulting business. Also, in 2019, I was able to buy my dream car. In these videos, you guys are gonna see me wearing a lot of Tesla gear. I'm a huge Tesla fan, as you guys can see. So I have the hat, the jacket, a bunch of shirts. So long story short, I was able to buy my dream car, which is a Tesla Model S. Interestingly enough, on my birthday, on September 1st, 2018, I rented a Tesla as a trial. I wanted to give it a shot, so I rented it on Turo. And then 4 months later, I bought the exact same car. And the beautiful thing is that my properties from the monthly cash flow, a small percentage of that goes towards the monthly payment because I was able to finance the vehicle, and rather than pay off the car, I'm able to use all that capital, reinvest it into more rental properties so that they can pay for my car payment. Now, one of our family core values is contribution, making a difference in the community, making a difference in the world. I've learned from personal experience that becoming a millionaire and having a lot of money in your bank account doesn't necessarily create fulfillment. It truly doesn't. I know when our net worth exceeded $1 million, I remember I came home, I was so excited, and I told my wife, guess what? We're millionaires now. And it was funny because for a few months, I hadn't really looked at our bank accounts or our equity and our rental properties. But that day, I just happened to do that. And I was doing the numbers and I'm like, wow, our net worth is over $1 million. Like, we are officially millionaires. So we're vegan. We've been vegan for about 3 years. And we went and celebrated at one of our favorite vegan restaurants. And then 3 days later, I'm not feeling like $1 million anymore. It's almost like that feeling was gone. And that's when I realized that life is so much more than just having money in your bank account. Now, don't get me wrong, I'll take the money. I love making money. I love finances, investing, financial literacy. I mean, that's my stuff. But that day, it was a big awakening that we get to be more in contribution. We get to leave this world better than when we found it. So we do a lot of mentoring. I personally have spoken and mentored thousands of high school students where I teach them about entrepreneurship, real estate, financial literacy. I go over a lot of self-development with them to help them get to their goals. And I share with them that, yeah, they can go to college if they want to become a doctor or a dentist, but if they want to be an entrepreneur, they don't need to go to college. I'm a college dropout and I was able to become a millionaire by age 30, and you guys can do it too. So I share my life experiences, my wisdom, the good, the bad, the ugly, so that way they can take that experience and then decide what they want to do. But I just want to let them know that they have options. They don't have to follow the same footsteps that everyone else does, because that may not work for them. So this is what I call living a life by design and not by default. You see, most people live a life by default, meaning whatever cards life deals them, just go with it and not really decide to make any changes. Well, even though I experienced everything from gangs, drugs, alcohol growing up, a lot of challenges, a lot of obstacles, I decided to use that as fuel for success, as stepping stones to live a life by design. With that being said, let's go into the 3 biggest lessons.
Let's go.
And number 1 is responsibility. You see, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And the day that I learned how to take responsibility for my life is when things began to change. You see, for many years, I was in a victim mindset. Poor me. I experienced drugs, gangs, alcohol. My dad abandoned me, my mom abandoned me, and I always felt like the whole world was against me. But really, what life was teaching me was that if I could overcome these obstacles, if I could overcome these challenges, I could truly live a life by design and I could accomplish anything in the world. I truly believe that the only reason I had every single one of these challenges in my life is because I could overcome them. So even entrepreneurship and becoming, successful in life, everything that I experience, I don't focus on the money I'm going to make. I mean, I like the money, like I said, but I focus more on who I become in the process, because who I become in the process and the wisdom that comes with it will continue to make me millions of dollars a year. I don't go into projects or businesses just for money. I love the challenges, because every time there's an opportunity to win or lose, I never look at it as winning or losing. I always say I'm either gonna win or I'm gonna learn. Either way, I win. So it's just a different mindset. The biggest thing with responsibility is that the day I die, I am going to meet the greatest version of my potential. And when we meet, we will be so identical that you can't tell us apart. Lesson number 2 is possibility. It means that everything is possible 100% of the time. You see, when you believe that it's possible and you put in the work, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. You see, 97% of the people that quit work for the 3% that never quit. You see, I truly believe that if you put one foot in front of the other and you just keep doing that it's possible and you will arrive. Lesson number 3 is contribution. It means that the receiving is in the giving. You see, for me and my wife, being in contribution and making a difference in the world is what truly makes life worth living. Being in contribution means that you get to mentor and help other people who want to get there. And that's how I see this channel. I see this as a vehicle and an opportunity to share my mistakes, to share the challenges, the obstacles, the knowledge, the wisdom, so that way you don't have to make those same mistakes and you could learn from me. I want to thank you from my heart for joining me in this journey. Officially, I want to welcome you to my YouTube channel where I will be sharing wisdom, finances, personal growth, real estate investing, house hacking, and a lot of mindset strategies to help you be able to be successful and so that you can accomplish any goal that you set your mind to. With that being said, everyone, thank you so much. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to my life. We're in this journey together. Do me a favor, guys. Go ahead and smash the like button, because when you do, it helps the YouTube algorithm and it'll allow this video to be shown to more and more people so that together we could change the world. If you subscribe and turn on the notification bell, then you will be notified every time I upload a video, and I will be uploading multiple videos per week. Also follow me on Instagram where I post content every single day. And lastly, I want your support and I want to ask you, let me know in the comments below, what kind of videos would you like to see me upload? Let me know in the comments. And second, let me know what about this video resonated with you the most. Please let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time.